Hi everyone, I'm Denisse Mirasol, pursuing a Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English, 19 years old, and studying at Laguna State Polytechnic University, Las Bañas campus. So I'll ask a question. What is globalization? Do you know about it? Well, globalization is the interconnection and integration between companies, individuals, and governments that is mandated by the government or nations. And it somehow integrates information technology. There are a lot of impacts of globalization that we are experiencing today, especially now that we are connected with other countries through social media or to the use of technology. And according to Thomas L. Friedman, it can be divided into three parts. The history can be divided into three parts. First one is globalization one, which is globalization by nations or countries from 1492 to 1800s. Next one is globalization two, which is from 1800s to 2000, which is globalization by companies. And next one is globalization three from 2000 to present or now, which is globalization by individuals, which we are experiencing since we have the opportunity to talk to other people and have conversation with them or build rapport with them. But I'm not going to talk about its history since we are just talking about the impacts of globalization. The first impact would be the economic interdependence. As the way I see it, Philippines can't compete that well to countries, especially the first world countries, since a country is small and it is still underdeveloped or it is still a developing country. We can compete with them. We have resources that they don't have, and in a way, we export our resources and then they build product with it and then sell it to Philippines again, which is a low cost or maybe a high price. But how sarcastic it is that we can produce our own. Or maybe we can produce our own, but Philippines or Filipinos don't buy it. Um, Next one would be the greater competition. We can, as I've said, we can compete with other countries since it started with the government. There is corruption and everything is political. Just by the way you buy milk tea, there is political in everything. And with corruption, it affected lots of factors. For example, in the Philippines, we will have to loan with the World Bank. And then to pay that debt, we have to loan another. So how infinite cycle would that be? And I don't see a progress with that because we are still in debt. We have a lot of loans that is from another country, which would be a cycle if we can't produce our own and make a country successful. And one pros of having globalization is technological advancement. Since we have the opportunity to have free trade or trade liberalization, we can experience their products like iPhone or any gadgets that they make. We can experience that by exporting or importing their products to us and then we can buy it and then experience it. And somehow, if there is no trade between other countries and our countries, I don't see progress. I don't see advancement. Because if we have individual companies that makes products, they can have the quality or features that other countries make. And somehow I'm sad by that kind of fact because we can create our own product that has a lot of features that would encourage us to buy our own product. Next one, the impact of globalization is multicultural awareness. And with multicultural awareness, we have the opportunity to talk with people with other countries. For example, I have a Chilean friend from um, other countries or foreign countries, and I build rapport with her by just talking to her. I am well known with their culture because I'm talking to her about it. And somehow I managed to learn some new terms from Spanish. And somehow she also enjoyed my culture, which is from Philippine culture, like what we have in our country, like Manopo or the events in the Philippines, like Christmas. And there are varying factors why globalization has a negative impact and positive impact. Because with multicultural awareness, we somehow forgot our own culture. For example, I don't really use po and opo as as my own. But when I started watching K-dramas, I managed to adopt the culture or the mannerism by having 45 degrees bow. For example, there I am crossing the street and then I bow as a thank you, but I don't use our Philippine culture. So there is pros and cons with multicultural awareness because it creates cultural diffusion. We are somehow influenced with other cultures and not encouraging our own to use our own culture. So there is cultural diffusion, but somehow it is an opportunity to understand other cultures or other traditions by just building rapport with them. But yeah, and uh, with technological advancement, we could create an advocacy to, you know, to create an encouragement to know our own culture by uh, posting it on social media, which is a great effect of globalization. So going back, we have education as part of the impact of globalization. So the way I see it, education is important. Well, from a perspective, education is important because it makes a great leaders. And somehow it encourages to have patriotism with our country or a love for our country. So going back, local schools can make their curriculum a better one. They can integrate technology and then use it to adapt something or to make students learn something about the topic. But it has negative impacts because not all schools can compete or have that because we lack resources. And one benefit of having globalization is international school will be increasing. They would create establishments to have a university that involves a lot of students from different countries. And that creates inclusivity. Um, Next one would be uh, the environmental impact. In environmental impact, that is connected with the uh, local products, which is, for example, cell phones or gadgets and food resources. So in globalization, environmental impact is the way or the one that has a major impact because it affects the environment by making products. For example, even if we don't really use the resources of environment, we create toxic carbon dioxide by emitting gas that leads to greenhouse effect. For example, to ship this kind of product, we would use airplane or ships, and that emits carbon dioxide or greenhouse effect. that is bad for our ozone layer. Next one is uh, yeah, the impact of environmental um, uh, environmental degradation. There is a negative impact because, for example, global climate change, which is inevitable, and we can't really change it by making actions in a few years. We have to, uh, you know, make an action by starting with small things. But starting with small things, if the bigger companies like factories doesn't participate with this kind of action, it would be useless because the factories are the most major problem of the environment because they emit a lot of gases rather than just by using electricity of every family. So they create the most problem. And if they don't participate, our actions, even if it's good, doesn't have that kind of impact rather than making them participate. But as the way I see it, money is everything. They can sacrifice money by not using this kind of resources, like not making or making money by having a mining company or gas, because we can create a solar panel, of course, that we can create a product or a vehicle that is run by sun. But since the oil company cannot produce money, they stopped that idea. And that is a problem since they create the most problem. And if we don't really convince them to change their plans, it doesn't really have an effect. We can change the climate change in a few years. And this kind of worse climate is worse or the worst in a few years for uh, the future generation. So in conclusion, globalization has an impact negatively and positively, and we just have to handle it in the smarter way. We have to build inclusivity, make equal rights, and more plans that is successful or have the greater impact. And globalization is not that bad, but it needs improvement. Again, I'm sorry, Denisse Mirasol, and this is my TED Talk about globalization.